Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah and welcome to the first Alphabet Escapades of 2026. So if you have not been here before, this is my version of a TBR game. I have every single book on my physical TBR. I only read books physically, so I shouldn't say physical TBR, but just on my TBR. Sorted in my computer alphabetically by author's last name. And what I do is I spin a spinner wheel on my phone, we pick a letter, and then we read books from the corresponding authors for the video. So this is actually kind of funny. I filmed this portion, this intro, earlier on today, and then I realized that I was missing a book from my list. And so I was at 249. I was at 249 when I did this earlier. Turns out I'm actually at a round number of 250 books on my physical TBR, and it is New Year's Eve. So what better night to start this video than New Year's Eve? So happy New Year's Eve to everyone. I hope you guys had a wonderful 2025 and I hope you have an even better 2026. And let's figure out what we're gonna be reading in this video. So I'm gonna do things a little bit differently this year. My plan is to film one of these every single month, and I'm going to use my previous month's haul and the books that I read in the previous month to help me figure out how many books I need to read for this video. So the way that I'm gonna do that is I'm taking the number of books that I hauled in December, which is 11, and I'm gonna subtract the books that I have finished as of today, December 31st, 2025, which is 6. And that leaves 5 books different. So I'm gonna try and read 5 books in this video. Now the way that I figure this is if I haul less books than what I read in a month, I could do that as like a freebie. I can read however many books I want in the time I allot myself. But every month I'm gonna try and do this based off my hauls, because honestly, I think most of us are that way, that we haul books faster than we read them. And I do that. I go to little free libraries, I go to Goodwill, I find stuff secondhand, I buy stuff brand new, I get new releases, all the things. And it's what I enjoy. I love buying books. I love getting new books. I love having books shipped to me, because opening up a box full of books, I swear, is one of like the best things ever. You just have to pile them up and you just have to look at them for a little while, at least for me personally. So I love to do that. But unfortunately, that means I have a lot of books on my TBR. So my goal is by the end of the year, I'm hoping that I can at least half this number, or at least, yeah, I want to try and cut this number in half. I want to get my book hauls and the books that I read in a month kind of more in sync, I should say. Not 100% under control. I'm not going to do a book buying ban or anything like that, because like I said, it makes me happy. But I want to get it more under control. So that's kind of what we have to look forward to in 2026. And I hope that if this is your first time here, that you continue on this journey with me and see how we do. And if you've been here before, then welcome back. And I'm glad that you're here and you're continuing this with me. But that being said, let's spin the wheel and figure out what letter we get for January of 2026 for the very first video. So let me turn my volume up. There we go. And then we will give it a chance to adjust for the light. And then let's spin. Oh, I don't know if I want to do that one. Okay, so I have 4 books under I, 3 of which are the Shadow of What Was Lost trilogy by James Islington. The other one is The Peculiar Garden of Harriet Hunt by Chelsea Iverson. So here's what I'm gonna do. I will read The Peculiar Garden of Harriet Hunt by Chelsea Iverson, but I am going to spin again because I don't want to read The Shadow of What Was Lost, and it's not enough books anyway. So we are going to add, sorry, I have my computer over here next to me. I am going to add Peculiar Garden as book number 1. All right, so we'll read that one, but I am going to spin again. Now, my other thing with this is if I do DNF a book, I am counting it as one of my books because it's still getting it off of my shelves. I'm trying it out, deciding if I like it or not. And if I decide to DNF it, then it counts because it's still getting it off my shelves. Just as forewarning. But I don't like to DNF books. There's always a thought in the back of my mind that, like, what if this was potentially a 4 to 5 star rating that I just didn't commit enough. But there's a point where you have to draw the line, you know? So, okay. Anyways, let's spin again. Give it a chance to adjust for a second, and then let's go. W. Okay, so what do we have for W? I feel like that's a fair amount because W is pretty decent. Okay, so 16. We have 16 books with the last name of W, so I have to pick 4 of these. So we have The Peculiar Garden of Harriet Hunt. Under W, we have Alien Prototype by Tim Wagner, The Lost Bookshop by Evie Woods, Ninth Reign by Jen Williams, One by One by Ruth Ware, The Foxglove King by Hannah Witten, House of Beating Wings by Olivia Wildenstein, Midnight at the Blackbird Cafe by Heather Weber, Everybody Wants to Rule the World Except Me by Django Wexler, Voyage of the Damned by Frances White, Legacy of Ash by Matthew Ward, The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, Swiss Family Robinson by Johann David Weiss, The Golem and the Jinny by Helena Wecker, Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, The Orphan Collector by Ellen Marie Wiseman, and Fool Me Once by Ashley Winstead. I love this setup. I love this setup. I was really nervous, like when I first, because the letter that I got earlier was B, and I was having a really hard time trying to decide like what I wanted to read. There's S.A. Barnes, there's Jacqueline Benson. I have options. Obviously Frederick Backman, but I didn't feel like there was enough like various genres. This though, we have horror with Alien. We have romantasy with Foxglove King and House of Beating Wings. We've got, what's the word? Magical realism, I believe, with The Lost Bookshop. We've got classics, which I don't normally read, but I do really want to try Picture of Dorian Gray. I always have, which is why I have this book. I've always wanted to try it out. And with Swiss Family Robinson, it's going to be January, so I don't think I'm going to read that now, but I still want to read it. We've got The Orphan Collector and Fool Me Once, so we've got some historical, some romance. We've got sci-fi with Andy Weir. This is a great lineup. So we have The Peculiar Garden of Harriet Hunt. I'm trying not to forget the name of this book. But then I get to choose 4 more. So I don't know yet what I'm going to decide to read. I might go through all these books and kind of narrow it down. I don't know. Maybe I'll just do like a random number generator to choose the next one. But either way, we are going to choose 4 books that start with W, or from authors' names, last name starts with W. And yeah, I'm really excited for this. So we are starting this video with 250 books on our physical TBR. We are doing 1 book with the last name of I, 1 book with the last name of W, and I'm really excited for this. So thank you so much for being here, hanging out with me for a little bit, and I will come back and give you an update as soon as I get started with the book and have some initial thoughts. Hey, what's up? Good morning, guys. So it is now January 1st. Oh my goodness. So happy new year. But I took just a tiny little bit of B-roll last night. I did decide to start with The Peculiar Garden of Harriet Hunt by Chelsea Iverson because it is the only I book that I will be reading. I actually already made my TBR for this after my spins yesterday, so I already planned out what I'm going to be reading. Very, very excited. But I did end up starting this. I read the prologue last night and then started in on, or I guess it's not a prologue, it's like an article. That's at the very beginning of the book. And then I ended up starting it more this morning. And I read the first 2 chapters. That's as far as I got. So this book, it starts out that a man, Mr. Christian Comstock, has been missing for over 2 months. And then it moves into following Harriet Hunt. Harriet Hunt is a young woman. She's in her 20s that she is just kind of odd. She is very reclusive, very naive, very much not understanding of what's going on in the world around her. And she lived with her dad after her mom passed away, and her dad, it alludes to a not great relationship between her and her father, makes commentary about how he hurt her and things like that. It's very, very repetitive in the first 2 chapters. I think it alluded to him not being a good man probably 20 times in the first 30 pages, I'm not gonna lie. It also talks about how she has to take care of the garden. She can't leave. She has to take care of the garden. But I don't know. This book, I started it. I did not like the writing style. I did not like how repetitive it was. I did not like the allusions to the abuse and things that happened. I didn't like it. And so I looked at Goodreads. And let me grab my phone so that way I could tell you some of what I've seen. So the reason that I wanted to read this one was it was one that my sister sent me for our book exchange. However, my sister, once she finished this book, actually finished it, did not like it. She ended up giving it 2 stars. Okay, so this book, with me not liking the writing style right from the beginning, I knew that my sister had already given it 2 stars once she finished it. She was very disappointed with this book. And so I looked a little bit further into some of the other reviews. Now, this book is definitely one that you want to check your triggers for. So the review that ended up kind of sealing the deal for me for this book, it was very repetitive. I didn't like the writing. The main character was super, super naive right from the get-go, like ridiculously so. And the allusions to abuse, I did not like that. But the review that sealed the deal for me for this book was a girl on Goodreads. Her name is Leandra. She gave it 1 star. And it says, "The marketing of this book. I need to preface this 1-star review by emphasizing that this book is extremely mismarketed for fans of The Magician's Daughter and Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. While I haven't read the former, I have read Emily Wilde, and The Peculiar Garden of Harriet Hunt could not be more different. Iverson's novel follows a naive young woman who has experienced decades of trauma, initially by the hands of her father and then by the hands of her husband. Throughout the book, she has vague magical abilities with nature that are never explained, nor really explored by our main character, making this historical magical realism, not fantasy. With that said, my reasons for giving this book the lowest rating possible has nothing to do with the mismarketing of the title." Then it goes on to say that the excessive repetitions, callbacks to the trauma, things like that, which I agree. Just in the first 2 chapters, that was very, very, very intense. And it says, none of the characters were consistent in personality or demeanor. None of the characters know the meaning of active listening. They had different conversations with each other. It says, and her review references a scene that she confides to 2 characters that her husband locked her in the basement for days, all while she has hair missing from her head from when he dragged his wife by her hair. And the response she gets to this question is, "Did he hurt you?" And that was what sealed the deal for me. I don't want to read a book where she has trauma from past abuse from her father or trauma with her father to getting into a marriage, which according to some of the reviews that I saw was a very instantaneous thing, like they speak twice and then they get married, and then he hurts her too. And I don't want to read about that. I don't want to start out my 2026 year by reading a book not only that I don't like right from the get-go with the repetition and just I just didn't like the setup of this book at all, and then have it turn into being a story of abuse. I don't want to start my year off that way. So I am DNFing this one. I made it 34 pages into this book. I stopped right here at chapter 3, and I will not be continuing, and I will be unhauling this book. I'll probably list it on my Pango for a while. The way that I do things with my Pango is that I will list my books on Pango, and then when I get a stack big enough that I get tired of looking at them, I ended up taking them off of Pango and taking them to little free libraries. So that's what I end up doing. But unfortunately, this one is just not gonna happen for me, especially to start my year off. I don't want this to be the first book that I read. So it is really unfortunate. The synopsis on the back did sound really good. It says that she's completely alone. Her father disappeared months ago, leaving her to wander the halls of Sunnyside House, dwelling on the past she'd rather keep buried. She doesn't often venture beyond her front gate, instead relishing the feel of dirt under her fingernails and soft moss beneath her feet. Consequently, she's been deemed a little too peculiar for popular Victorian society. This solitary life suits her fine, though, because outside, magic awaits. Harriet's garden is special. It's a wild place full of twisting ivy, vibrant plums, and a quiet power that buzzes like bees. Caring for this place and keeping it from running rampant through the streets of her London suburb is Harriet's purpose. But a woman alone in the world is vulnerable. Soon a sinister plot involving her father's disappearance begins to take shape, with Harriet herself at its center. Everything she holds dear, from the thorny roses she tends to her very freedom, is at stake. To save herself, Harriet will have to unearth her past, discover the secrets of her garden, and finally embrace the wild magic inside her. So the synopsis sounded really intriguing, but unfortunately, with what I read and some of the reviews that I saw, check your trigger warnings before you, if this sounds interesting to you, if this sounds like something that you could enjoy, check your trigger warnings beforehand, because this is not, from the sound of it, gonna actually be the cozy fantasy that it sounds like. It sounds like it's gonna be very dark, and at times at least, and it's just not for me. So that being said, this is the first book that I will be removing from my TBR in 2026. Hooray for me. Unfortunately, because this book is stunning, and it did sound like it was going to be something that I would really enjoy, sounded like it was going to be something really interesting, but unfortunately it's just not working out that way. So that being said, let's move on. I ended up deciding to start my next book already this morning. I'm not very far into it. I am only on chapter 4, which is 23 pages in, but I decided to start The Lost Bookshop by Evie Woods. Now, I'm under the impression that this is going to be magical realism, and if you've been around this channel for a minute, you know that I absolutely love magical realism. There's something about it that it's just, it's not like high fantasy or like high magic or fairies or anything like that, like some of the others are. It's just a really quiet type of magic, I guess is the way to put it. Like with The Unmaking of Jude Farrow, it's the doorways with time travel, and I think that it's going to be something a little bit similar with this one. So this one says, on a quiet street in Dublin, already got my attention with Dublin, a lost bookshop is waiting to be found. For too long, Opaline, Martha, and Henry have been the side characters in their own lives. But when a vanishing bookshop casts its spell, these three unsuspecting strangers will discover that their own stories are every bit as extraordinary as the ones found in the pages of their beloved books. By unlocking the secrets of the shelves, they find themselves transported to a world of wonder where nothing is as it seems. So it sounds amazing. It's set in Dublin, which automatically caught my attention. And so far, I like the writing style in this. It is descriptive without being overly so. It has allusions to books that I really enjoy. The very first chapter in the is from Opaline's perspective, and it's talking about how her father gave her her love of books, and he says to her, or it says it on page 5, it says, he always said that books were more than words on paper. They were portals to other places, other lives. I fell in love with books and the vast worlds they held inside, and I owed it all to my father. So I loved that, and I already have a feeling like that's going to be a good sign. So we have Opaline's perspective, which is set in 1921 in London, and then it switches over to a little bit more modern day for the perspectives of Martha and Henry. And sounds like Martha is running away from an abusive relationship and is trying to start over. And so at least where I'm at right now, she's just found a job that it is a live-in maid, and she will be living in the basement. Well, her first morning there, she wakes up, and out the basement window, there's a guy pacing back and forth in front of the little window. So all she could see is his feet going back and forth. And she opens up the window and she's like, "What are you doing? What do you want? Why are you outside my window?" And he's like, "Well, I'm looking for something." And she's like, no, you can go be a peeping Tom somewhere else." And so like their first initial interaction, I really enjoyed, and I love that. Opaline is in her early 20s, if I got this correctly. She is in her early 20s in 1921, and her mom and her older brother just said that it's time for her to get married. She is disrespectful for the family. If she wants to go find a job, she has to get married. So now she's got to meet this guy. But I have a feeling that that's not going to work out. But it also sounds like her older brother is kind of a dickhead. He has suffering from some serious PTSD from the wars. He's very much like scarred from shrapnel on his right side, and he's got some major trauma, no loud noises kind of trauma. And so he's just kind of a dick. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. I'm really not very far into this, because like I said, I'm only 23 pages in, but it's already off to a better start than the other one. So really looking forward to continuing on with this and seeing where it goes. It's chunkier than I remember it being. This book is, let's see, 407 pages, so it's not like insanely long, but it's longer than I thought it was going to be. It's chunkier than I thought it was going to be, but I'm very excited to read this one and continue on with it. And so yeah, that is my update for you for now. So we have one book down because it is a DNF, but we have started on the next one, and I'm really excited for the list that I made of the books to come for this video. I never make my TBRs ahead of time for these videos after I spin the wheel, but I did last night, and I'm very excited for all these books. So I'm gonna go read some more of this, and then I will check back in with you when I have some more thoughts. Hello, what's up guys? So it is now Monday, so it's been a few days since I talked to you. We have a few new updates, or a handful of new updates I should say. Last time that I talked to you, I had decided to DNF The Peculiar Garden of Harriet Hunt. I can never say that right, but the first try. I decided to DNF that book, and I ended up picking up The Lost Bookshop by Evie Woods. This one also has themes of abuse and dealing with abuse from family members and from partners. Now, this one handles it differently. These women are getting out, getting away from it, and trying to create a different life for themselves. So it is a factor in this book. So check your trigger warnings for this one if you are interested in picking this one up. However, that being said, I really liked this book. I felt like I really connected with these characters, and I really just, it wasn't fast-paced by any means, but it had me intrigued. I wanted to see what was going to happen next. I wanted to see what was going to happen for these women. Now, the magical realism aspect of this was not excessively prominent. There is a little bit that is there, but most of it's toward the end. We don't really see it until towards the end more. But I did like it. I wish it was more. I wish that there was more of the magic part of the magical realism in this. Overall, this book surprised me. It frustrated me. It made me care about the characters. It had a little bit of magic, and it was books. A big part of the backstory with this book is that our main character, Opaline, is looking for Emily Bronte's possible second book or the beginnings of a second book. She's a huge Emily Bronte fan, a huge Bronte fan in general, and she wonders if she ever wrote a second book. And she has taken it upon herself as her question, her life question is, did she ever go on to write a second novel? Or at least start one before she died. And that is Opaline's journey. Now, Opaline is the one who starts this bookshop. She gets involved with book dealing and she always has this love of books, and she always kind of has this question in the back of her mind. And so that's the main character that we're following. We're also following Martha and Henry. Now, Martha and Henry are in present day. It doesn't seem like it at first, but they are. They have phones, they have laptops, you know, all the normal things. So they are in present day. Henry is trying to find this lost bookshop that nobody knows what it is or where it was. He just believes that it was on Halfpenny Lane. And he's trying to find it. And Martha is leaving an abusive husband and trying to start a new life for herself and basically starting over from scratch with absolutely nothing at all. So she takes this job as a live-in housekeeper for this wealthy woman who is single and used to be an actress. And so she is this live-in housekeeper for this woman. And she meets Henry just by chance, because she is living and working on Halfpenny Lane. And so their stories kind of become intertwined. They become friends, and that's kind of where the story goes. So those are the characters that we're following in this book. And I feel like some things weren't fleshed out as much as they could be. The timeline for Martha and Henry was kind of peculiar. Because it didn't seem like it was modern day at times, like especially at the beginning, until she throws in like looking at your phone or I shut my laptop or, you know, whatever. So the timeline was a little iffy. The obviously the abusive aspects of this I didn't care for, but I did like the fact that it was these women having a great friend group and having somebody on their side that was standing behind them in their corner saying, no, that's not how this is going to go. It's going to go a different way, and helping them through this because they didn't want to be there. And I liked that aspect of it. Because there's a lot of books where you don't see that as much, where they are all on their own and trying to figure it out or dealing with it or whatever the case may be. And like, you know, it's like they're on their own. But this one doesn't do that. This one, they actually have people in their corner on their side trying to help them. And I did like that aspect. I thought the look into the auctions, the book auctions and literature auctions and things, while minimal, was really interesting. I don't really know a whole lot about any of that stuff, but I always think like I just always think it's interesting. Like the things that are lost over time and the way that it comes about for them to be found. And I don't know, there was a lot of really interesting aspects to this book. So overall, that being said, after ranting about this book for almost 6 minutes, I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. It wasn't quite 5 stars, but it felt like it was a little bit more than 4 stars because I was shocked at the ending of this book. It surprised me. It wasn't something that I had even thought about or put together in my mind. I was just kind of along for the ride. I didn't really know where it was going to go. But I did enjoy it a lot, and so I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. So that is book number 2 that is done for this Alphabet Escapades video. Woohoo. Go me. So I did finish this one. The next one that I was debating on picking up was The Orphan Collector by Ellen Marie Wiseman, which I decided I didn't want to go that route after finishing The Lost Bookshop. I didn't want another really heavy read break like that immediately after. So the one that I ended up starting out was The Foxglove King by Hannah Whitten, and I didn't make it very far. I did not make it very far. I read the first 19 pages, and I did not like the writing style. I didn't like that it felt extremely YA. The font in this book is gigantic. I believe this is supposed to be an adult book, but when I opened it up, I felt like I was reading large print. Like, okay, so there's that, and then There's that. Like, it's huge. I don't know if you can tell, because I think it's probably trying to focus on my face. But the font in this thing is huge. And I didn't like the writing style. I felt like it was extremely YA because you read the first chapter and you are just thrown into the middle of the story with all these different magic things and people and plots and so many different things going on, and you get absolutely no explanation whatsoever about any of it. You're just thrown in and you're expected to just swim. And I didn't like it. I don't like books like that. I don't like, you know, I like it. You can have a prologue, you can have something to hook me, but there has to be some kind of an explanation for something, or at least establish who the heck somebody is before you give me everybody else's name in the entire universe. I didn't like it. I didn't like how it started. I didn't want to continue on and try and push myself to read a book that I immediately knew that I didn't like. And so, unfortunately, 19 pages in, I did DNF this. I'm not going to continue with it. Maybe I'll try something else by Hannah Witten later on, but this was not it for me at all. And maybe I'm making a mistake. I know people have loved this series, or at least I believe so. I know that I had heard of it before I picked it up at a little free library, but it's not going to be it for me. And I'm not going to spend a crazy amount of time on this book when I immediately didn't like it. I didn't like that the first scene you get of our main character is that she's like slinking around in a nightgown basically to try and look hot so that way she doesn't have to pay rent. Like, I don't know, I just didn't like it. So I did immediately DNF this one, and it will be off my shelves. Thankfully, it was released from a little free library, so I'm not like just out $30, but I mean, sometimes that just happens that way, unfortunately. But like I said, this one, I actually have listed it on my Pango already. So if you wanted to go and check out my Pango, it's Utterly Reading. You can go check that out, or I believe it's Utterly Reading. And you can go and check that out. But I decided not to continue with this one. Now, the next book that I had in mind to pick up was, like I said, The Orphan Collector, or I was going to pick up Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Now, like I said, I still don't want something that's super heavy right now, like The Orphan Collector. I am going to put that one off for a bit, but I didn't really want to pick up Project Hail Mary either, because when I tried starting that one before, I didn't like how the book started out. I thought it seemed super YA and I wasn't a fan, and I've never gone back to it. I want to at some point, hopefully this year, because I need to at least give it another shot and get it off my shelves if I don't like it, but now is not the time to do it. So I ended up deciding that I was going to go back to my list, kind of look at my shelves, look at my list, see what else I had by authors that last names start with W. Because I'm still not going to pick up the James Islington books yet. I just don't particularly want to read those right now. So what I ended up coming down to was either Legacy of Ash, which is in the other room right now, by Matthew Ward, or The House of Beating Wings by Olivia Wildenstein. Now, this one is a romantasy book, and I was going to read the first chapter in both books, and then I read the prologue in this one, and then I read the first chapter in this one, then I read the second chapter, and I've just continued with it. I never even tried out Legacy of Ash yet. But I have been reading House of Beating Wings today. I've made some pretty decent progress in this. I am a little over 100 pages into this right now. I feel like things are really going to start to pick up because the first 100 pages has been kind of establishing things. So this is following Fallon, and Fallon, when she was a little girl, she was at the market with her mom. She is half Fae, and she is basically anybody that has rounded ears and isn't like full Fae with the pointed ears is looked down on by everybody, like by all the Fae. And she's not welcome. Her mom got her ears clipped because of having relations with a non-Fae guy, and has been basically mute ever since, and in like her own little world. And so Fallon is half Fae, and she was at the market with her grandmother when she was a little girl, and something happened that basically had her chasing thieves of stuff from their baskets. She fell in the water. And when she fell in the water, this serpent, this like, they're called like maris serpents or mer serpents, something like that, came and she thought was going to attack her. And she is a water fae, or a water elemental fae, whatever, however you want to describe it. I don't remember the exact terminology of it, but she is water based. And so she thought this mare serpent thing was going to attack her. Well, turns out it was actually a juvenile, and it ended up bonding with her. Now, nobody quite understands that that actually is what happened, but 20 years later, she still can get in touch with this serpent. Like, she goes to the water, this serpent will come back to her. And so they're like bonded to each other. And it's like an animal companion, but they're not like fully animal companions yet, because like she has to keep it a secret because everybody already calls her like the beast whisperer or whatever. And so her family is scorned by pretty much everybody because she's half fae, and her mom, like I said, had relations with somebody who was a fae. So it kind of fell from grace. Turns out her grandfather is actually like related to the king, or is the king, or something like that. So her grandfather is somebody in power. Her grandma decided to leave her grandpa to stay with her mom. And so here we are. So now she is in this like crazy love triangle thing where this guy named Anthony has proposed marriage to her, but she doesn't want to marry him. She doesn't, he's a fisherman, and she's just not interested. She doesn't want to get married to him. And then there's this other guy, Dante. Now Dante is the prince, and he's royalty, and he's fae and all that, but they've grown up together. They've always been friends. They've always been around each other, and she is in love with Dante. But she can't be with Dante because he's royalty, and it's not allowed. She can't be with him because she's half fae, so she can't marry him. Anthony is in love with her, but she doesn't want to be with him. And so it's like this love triangle thing. Now, I'm not big on love triangles. I feel like love triangles are YA. I'm not big on love triangles. But the little bit of a magic system that is in this book so far has me really, really, really intrigued. Her mom says some nonsensical things one day when she was sitting and looking out the window, saying, Bronwyn is watching you. It's time. She's watching you. And she's like, who's Bronwyn? Well, come to find out, Bronwyn is a blind seer or diviner who can see the future. And when she gets an opportunity to talk to Bronwyn, Bronwyn tells her that she needs to go and go and free the Iron Crows, and she will be queen. And she's like, how the hell does that work? How am I supposed to find these things? How am I supposed to become queen? Because I'm a nobody and nobody likes me. How? But of course, being a diviner, she doesn't get any answers. So she's trying to puzzle it all out. I'm really intrigued. Like I said, I'm 100 pages in this. I started this morning. I'm super intrigued to continue. Really, really glad that I'm at least interested in what I'm reading, because I needed a kind of a change up from what I was originally planning. I was kind of glad that I didn't have a set TBR for this to start with, because that's kind of gone out the window after the first couple of books. But since I've already had 2 DNFs, I figured this was the perfect opportunity to change things up. I needed a change of pace. So here we are. So this is what I'm reading now. This still fits with my Alphabet Escapades for the letter W, obviously Wildenstein. And I'm really enjoying this so far. I'm super intrigued. Instead of cursing, they say cauldron, which is very, very strange. I don't particularly like that. But it did say fucking a couple of chapters ago. And the guy was just like, oh my God, I don't think I've ever heard you curse before. Because she's like, I have no clue what the fuck what I'm fucking doing, or something like that. And he's like, holy crap, I don't think I've ever heard you curse. I mean, it's not like completely shying away from it. I think it's just like a choice for this world. And I keep picturing like, kind of like The Hobbit with the, what is it, Dorne that they go to, and it's like the island town. I kind of picture that, but like, not exactly. I don't know. I'm picturing it in a very specific way, and it's really, really hard to explain because it is like a water town with fishermen and stuff like that, but then there's like the cities that are across the water and, you know, things. I don't know. It's hard to explain it. But so far, I am liking the atmosphere in this. I am liking the characters in this. There are a handful that really haven't shown up a whole lot yet, but this book is 500 pages, so there's plenty of time for things to happen or for things to change and like just move on, since not a whole lot has been established about some of these people yet. But I'm definitely intrigued to continue on with this and find out. So like I said, I am 116 pages into this. I am going to do a little bit more filming, and then I'm going to jump back in and I'm going to do some reading, and hopefully I'll be able to get through a pretty decent chunk of this by the end of today. At least that's the goal. So that being said, I'm going to film some more, and then I'm going to keep reading. But I will talk to you guys once I have some more thoughts. Good morning, guys. So it's now Thursday. It's January 8th, and I finished House of Beating Wings last night by Olivia Wildenstein. This book had a fantastic idea. It had a fantastic plan and setting, and I thought the creatures and the magic system were awesome in this book. However, I do feel like this author couldn't decide if she wanted to write an adult book or if she wanted to write a young adult book. Now, our main character, she's 22. I said she was 23 and that like X amount of years before. It was 10 years before. She was 12 years old when she originally fell into the water and met the sea serpent thing. Now she's 22. And for about half of this book, she reads like she's 16 or younger. She is naive. She's caught up in a love triangle. She's totally in love with this guy that she knew ever since they were kids because he was her first kiss, and she doesn't see anything wrong with him, and he's a prince, and there's nothing wrong with this guy. But she doesn't see any faults in him. She gets her feelings hurt at the drop of a hat, and I don't know, like there was just something about this about Fallon in this book, our main character, that half the time she really did feel like you were reading from the perspective of a 14 to 16-year-old girl, even though she's 22. There were parts of this book that I absolutely loved. I was so intrigued by the storyline and having to find the crows and all the magic and the creatures and stuff like that. I totally thought that was really, really cool. But there were parts of it that I couldn't help but roll my eyes and get really, really, really irritated with Fallon. Through the entire book, there is hints at something that happens that is revealed. And she is so insanely blind to it, you just want to slap her and say, what are you doing? Like, you're not looking at what's in front of you or listening to any kind of reason within this. And it doesn't make sense. She's like excessively stupid about things for no reason whatsoever. You want to try and have a character who grows in her strength and her abilities and things like that. You don't need to make her an idiot, okay? And that's where my problem lies with this book. Now, I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars. It was not a bad book. I had a really good time with it. And like I said, overall, the plan for this book was fantastic. I thought it was a really great idea, and it was really well executed, except for the YA feel. Instead of cussing, they say cauldron. So they throw in fuck here and there and stuff like that. So they still curse, but she substitutes half of that with cauldron. That obviously was a choice because of how often it happens, but I don't understand it. I don't understand why the word of choice was cauldron. I thought it was in the crow language in this book, and like, yeah, like especially the crow language is like kind of, I don't know if it's actually like Gaelic or if it's just like seems like it, but that's how it comes off. And I mean, I thought it was really interesting. I don't know yet if I'm going to continue on with the series. I'm definitely curious to see what happens next, but at the same time, I'm really kind of put off with it because of the feel of this one being YA. This book did not feel like a romantasy. You have a love triangle for the first like half of it, and then the second half of it, it's like a different love triangle, but there's never actually any romance in it whatsoever. There is shallow flings, that there's nothing there, no chemistry, nothing. And then you start to feel like a little smidge of maybe a possible relationship, but at the same time, the age differences in these books are kind of odd because the Fae, being Fae, they live for centuries. And this girl is 22. She is, that's it. There's no centuries involved. So it's kind of an odd age difference kind of thing to wrap your head around because, like, he knew her father for years and now, like, she's grown, and I don't know, it's just a really kind of weird dynamic. So, like, I don't know if I'm going to continue on with this series or not. I wrote it in my journal in case if I do want to continue with it, but I'm not sure. It has a weird age dynamic with it. The relationships are practically non-existent or extremely shallow. And I don't know, like, overall, I was really back and forth with how I felt about this book because, like I said, I did enjoy it. I read half of this book the first day that I read it, and then I came back to it a couple of days later and finished it out. So I read it very, very quickly, and it was a good book, but I was very conflicted throughout because some of the parts of it really, really irritated me. So either way, all of that being said, I gave this 3.5 stars. I finished another book. We have one book left for this video. Now, this morning I was debating. I was going to originally read Fool Me Once by Ashley Winstead, One by One by Ruth Ware, something that's a little bit shorter, something that I could kind of binge read. However, Winterween starts tomorrow, but I won't be able to do a whole lot of reading tomorrow. He's sad. Yeah. I won't be able to do a whole lot of reading tomorrow. So I think that I'm going to start Summerween today. So I'm going to double up on one of my books to finish out this video and have 5 books for this video like I originally planned. But I'm going to try and hit all 5 books for Winterween as well. Or all the prompts for Winterween. So the book that I am going to overlap, so I'm going to kind of talk about it here, but I'm going to start out my Winterween vlog that I'm going to start right after this with this book. But the book that I am going to kind of end this vlog with and start off Winterween with, I am going to read Antinora. Now this one is by Dory Lumpkin, and this is a short little horror novella. I just picked this up. I've never heard of it. I don't know anything about it. I didn't want to look it up on Goodreads. I didn't want to know anything. I've never heard of this book. I want a novella that will hit hard like Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson. Now that's very high standards to live up to because I know a lot of people loved Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson, and it was the perfect combination of being kind of like a cozy, sweet, like rom-com type of book that gives off vibes of like Hansel and Gretel, and then shit hits the fan and everything explodes. So it's a really, really difficult goal to set, but I really want to find another horror novella that I think that I enjoyed that much. So I picked this one up at Barnes. I almost never buy novellas because I am just that way. But this one caught my attention. It says, Antinora, Dante's 9th circle of hell, reserved for traitors to their country. That immediately caught my attention. It says, what really happened to Nora Willett? The religious community of Bethel, Alabama can't agree on the truth. They always said she was trouble. Later they said she was possessed. Maybe she lost her mind, killing 3 people and injuring many others. In a part confessional, part plea for Nora to come home, Nora's childhood friend, Abigail Barnes, tells of another girl's gruesome 18th birthday, of the time Nora may have fully revived a snake, of the intimacy of their private encounters at the lakeside, of Nora's deliverance ceremony, where Abigail wonders, is Nora now? In this tender and horrible debut, religious dogmatism sniffs out 2 girls whose innocent affections threaten an entire town and way of life, making one a traitor to a homeland in which only Abigail and Nora know the bittersweet truth, a homeland in which Nora can only say, there's a snake speaking to me, Abigail. So it sounds intriguing. It's blurbed by Eric LaRocca on the back, and then Emma Murray, who says it's the author of When the Devil, but I've never heard of that one. But I'm really curious about it. I'm going to try it out. I'm going to see if I like it. If I don't like it, then that sucks, but oh well. But this is what I'm going to read today to finish off this vlog, kick off Summerween. I'm gonna start my Summerween vlog a day early, and I'm really excited. So I have books all picked out for Summerween, and so if you want to see that, you'll just have to stay tuned and watch that video, because I will post that hopefully next Friday, as long as I get it all edited in time. But yeah, so this is what I'm gonna read today. Wish me luck, and that way we can finish out 5 books. So here we go. My daughter is sleeping on the couch, and so I am in here to try and keep the sound levels about the same. We'll see if she wakes up. But I finished Antinora, and I'm very disappointed. So because this is going to be part of another video, that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say anything more about it. I did finish it, and I can now get it off of my TBR shelves. So there's that. But let's wrap up this video. So this has been a whirlwind of almost having to fight a slump now. This year has started strangely, and I don't know if I like that for my reading. So the first book for this video that I attempted to read was The Peculiar Garden of Harriet Hunt by Chelsea Iverson, because I spun I first and I didn't want to read this trilogy right here, right now. So I tried to read this one. I DNF'd this one really, really quickly. My sister read it. She did not like it. She gave it 2 stars. I can see why. It was very, very repetitive, and there was a lot of alluding to parental abuse. And from what I looked at reviews of this book, she goes from parental abuse into spouse domestic abuse, and I didn't want to read that. I didn't want to start my year off with a book full of stuff, abuse that she doesn't do anything to help herself, kind of a situation. I didn't want to start my year that way. So I did DNF this one really quickly. I have listed on my Pango. I will be unhauling this book. So I think I said this before with this video, the way that I do things with my Pango is I will, when I've decided that I'm going to get rid of a book, I will list it on Pango, and I will leave it on Pango and put the books in my entryway where my bookcase used to be. And then once I get enough books stacked up that I get tired of looking at them, I unlist them all from Pango and I give them to little free libraries. So for the time being, this one is up on Pango. And if you're interested, you can go and check out my Pango. I can link it down below if you'd like. But I'm not going to hold on to this one. So not the greatest way to start out the year is with a DNF. Then I ended up reading The Lost Bookshop by Evie Woods. I gave this one like 4 or 4.5 stars. I went from one book about domestic abuse where she seems to not do anything about it, to this one where it is also about abuse. However, it is them getting out of that situation and making life better for themselves, or trying to move on with their lives and do something better. And I liked this one. The magical realism aspect of this book is extremely minimal. I wouldn't even say that it is really magical realism. I think it's more of just like a look into a historical fiction and some mysteries that these women are looking into because of that. The bookshop, the magical bookshop aspect of this book is so small. It's the motivation in this book, but it is so small that I wouldn't even call this a magical realism book, to be honest. I enjoyed it. I was really rooting for these characters, and I really liked these characters. The magical realism wasn't there like other books, like The Unmaking of June Farrow. And that part was disappointing, but it still was a good book, and I still enjoyed it. So it was difficult topics to read about still, and it was very frustrating at times, but I loved the family and friends that had these women's backs throughout this book. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. So I gave this one 4 to 4.5 stars. I don't remember which. I think I was kind of going back and forth. It wasn't a 5-star. It wasn't that high, but I still enjoyed it, and I thought it was still a really good book, and I'm glad that I read it. Next up, we tried to read The Foxglove King by Hannah Winton. This is another one that I DNF'd very, very quickly. I read about 19 pages of it and decided, nope, this one is not for me. It threw you right into the middle of a story and a magic system and a city, and kind of like Six of Crows does, but Six of Crows did it better. And I didn't like that. I'm not at the point where I like to be thrown into the middle of a book where I have no clue what's going on or who somebody is or anything about them and having to just figure it out. I want something. I want some kind of a basis. Let me get to know the main character and the magic system a little bit before you introduce me to everybody she's ever met in her life. Didn't like this one. It was a very quick DNF. I'm really glad I just got this one at a little free library because, I mean, I would have been kind of bummed out. But it's been on my shelves for a really, really long time. I'm glad I finally at least tried it. It doesn't mean I'm going to write off Hannah Winton in the future. It just means that this series was not for me, at least from what I read. Now, you might think I was making a mistake. Let me know down in the comments if you do think I was making a mistake, but I just didn't like the way that this started out at all. And I just didn't want to spend my time... I didn't want to spend my time trying to push through it when I knew right away that I didn't care for it. Does that make sense? Anyways, that one will also go up on my Pango. Actually, it's already on my Pango. The next one that I picked up, I changed things from what I was originally planning because I went from some really heavy books. So I wanted something that was a little bit more idyllic to be something that I would enjoy. So I ended up picking up The House of Beating Wings by Olivia Wildenstein. This is one that I've been really looking forward to ever since I first read the synopsis of it and I bought this book. And I'd never heard anything about this book or this series or this author. And so I finally read it and I finally got to it. Now, I said earlier that the ideas for this book were fantastic. The execution of this book was not ideal. I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. I did enjoy it. I still really liked it. It just felt too YA at times. This girl was kind of an idiot at times. I really wanted to just smack her and tell her to open her eyes and look at what's in front of her. But it wasn't bad. The romance was pretty much non-existent at this point. I know this is a series, so it's trying to be like super slow burn, but there's not even like really great chemistry. There's a little bit of chemistry, and that's about it for this one. Other than that, there's absolutely nothing to make this a romantasy, which really bums me out because I was really excited for this one. But it felt like it was right on that fine line between YA and like new adult kind of a book that it read too young. She read like she was between 14 and 16, not like she was 22, and I don't like that. That really bothered me with this book. Otherwise, the mare serpents, the like sea snake things, are an awesome concept. The idea of having to find these iron crows, super awesome concept. I love this concept. The atmosphere, the world building part of this, I really liked it. I was imagining like the lake town in The Hobbit for where she grew up at. So I was really into that aspect. It just didn't quite hit. Now, I don't know if I'm going to continue on in this series or not. I'm kind of curious, but at the same time, I kind of just want to be done. I put it in my reading journal, so that way if I do want to pick it up, then it'll kind of be one of those things like in the back of my mind, but I'm not like chomping at the bit to continue either. So 3.5 stars, not a bad book, but not a 5-star read either. And finally, Antinora. This is by Dory Lumpkin. It is a tiny little horror novella. And I don't want to say too much about it. I gave this 2 stars. It didn't feel like horror. That's all I'm going to say. I will do the rest of my spiel on that one in my Winterween video. So make sure that if you want to see my full thoughts on that book, that you check that one out next week when I actually get it posted. So yeah, that is what I read. That is the stack that I got through in about a week for this video. So I had a couple of DNFs, a couple that I finished, and a few that I wasn't super pleased with, which is really unfortunate. But we got to start somewhere for the year, and hopefully that means that we are only going to go up from here. So wish me luck in my vlogs to come. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like, comment, subscribe down below. Thank you so much for being here, hanging out with me for a little bit, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!